We all have we all have an Asheville story. We all have an Asheville story. Let's inspire each other to create a revival in Asheville. Well, you know what brought me to Asheville? I came here for the first time back in 2020, and I was coming because I was going to check out some breweries because I heard this was the place to be for breweries. It was Asheville, North Carolina, because I'd never heard of it. And as soon as I landed here and saw the mountains and just were in this valley surrounded by God's beauty, I just knew I was going to live here. Then I got to meet people, and the vibe of the people was really something that drew me here. So I just knew this is where God wanted me. He wanted me here in Asheville. And when I moved here, I remember the first day I actually drove in from the airport, and I was going to be here permanently. I thought this is the first time that I've ever lived somewhere that I chose to live. I'd been in the corporate world before, so I would always go where they sent me. So that was really it stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So this is a very intentional move for me. And what I started identifying were love places and spaces within Asheville. Because you get here and there are certain places, and within our community, that's what we do, is we are love places and spaces virtually or in person. So I went to all the coffee shops and all the breweries, and there are quite a few that ended up being like love places and spaces, places where I could go and just feel the vibe from the people, just that sense you get when you walk into a place. And the idea is to be able to share those places and spaces with other folks. And, you get this, you can walk into a place and smile. It's kind of like the Cheers thing where people know your name and all that. So lots of love places and spaces in Asheville when I was intentional about finding them and paying attention to those things. Asheville is a very giving place. People, a lot of tourism, so big on the service industry. So people who are used to serving, and when you can live here, and then people, you go to a restaurant and they say, "Well, where are you traveling from?" I'm like, "No, I live here." Like, "Oh, it's kind of surprising." But people are used to being hospitable. And I think that's something that drew me here as well. It's that spirit. And you can say, well, yes, if you're in the industry, you have to be that way. You have to treat even jerks nicely. And yeah, that's true. But if you're treating people with hospitality all the time, it tends to turn into who you really are. You become a hospitable person. And the interesting thing is, Jesus, in his day, when he was out teaching, he was either going to or coming from a meal. And he used hospitality, the breaking of bread, a meal, to break down barriers with people. That's what he did. He didn't argue with them or try to convince him his way was the right way. He used hospitality. So that's something that really, I know now looking back, drew me to Asheville. And the next point that I want to talk about is just the daily gratitude living here. I grew up in the Midwest in Chicago, love Chicago, great town, great city, but so different than Asheville. I wake up every day here and I'm in gratitude immediately, just looking at the mountains, the trees, nature, just the peace that's in the air around here. Even, any situation you encounter, if you've ever been to Asheville, everywhere you look, you can see the mountains. I mean, they're just everywhere. So you can always get a glimpse of glory when you're in Asheville. So it's just this, it helped me to habitize this daily gratitude, just being grateful in every moment, every circumstance, every situation. And then the next point about my Asheville story is when I moved here, Chris Haggerty, met him at a landscape place because he helped me with my landscaping. And he said, "Oh, I know all the best hikes around Asheville." I'm like, "Okay." And I don't think he knew, but I said, "Well, when I get here permanently, I'm gonna hit you up for some of those hikes." He probably thought, yeah, everybody says that. But I did. And we have this amazing relationships that still endures to this day. So over 3 years, where it started off, I would text him, okay, where am I going this week? Text him in the middle of the week. He'd say, all right, you're going to go here and stop here afterward. They have great cobbler and grab a beer over there. So it became this weekly adventure for me. And one of Jesus' other practices was silence and solitude, and being able to hike the mountains around Asheville. Oftentimes you go on a hike and you rarely see people, depending on the hike that you go on. But boy, you can experience that silence and solitude, that reuniting with the Father. And that just, it fills you up. It fills me up. And that's the point of silence and solitude. You spend time with the Father. That's what Jesus did. Oftentimes there would be a lot going on. People are clamoring for his attention, and he'd go off. He'd go off and spend time with his Father, not because he was tired or because he wanted to avoid people, but he wanted to get his Father's inspiration, fill himself up. It's kind of what Sabbath is all about. It's to rest so you can create, rest where you can do the Father's work. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So the silence and solitude is part of my Asheville story. And another part is Hurricane Helene. We just had the hurricane come through. And everybody has a hurricane story. I'll probably do a whole series on that. But my hurricane story was, going from the night before out with a friend, having a nice dinner, laughing, great conversation. And then that night to just see the storm and the trees bending and the sounds and oh my goodness, it was crazy. And this went on all night. I remember my power went off at about 6:30 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, here we go, and it's still raining. Finally got out. I don't remember what time it was, but started walking through the neighborhood, and luckily our 4 houses back here, no damage, but boy, just right around the corner, there's just damage everywhere. Trees down, and I walked all the way towards Biltmore, where the Biltmore house is. This is as far as I could go because that's where the flood had crested over the banks of the river. And the Weather Channel was out there doing a live report, wind and all this stuff. And that was the only way because we had no communication. We had no cell service, no nothing. So that's the only way I knew or could get a feel for what was going on. So I just stood there probably for an hour listening to her broadcasting live on the Weather Channel to understand the magnitude of what was going on. So I think everybody did. We were all kind of in a daze. Everybody's walking around and looking at each other like, you okay? Yeah, okay. We're just kind of like zombies because you just can't believe it. So what Helene did for me is just spiked my gratitude to a fever pitch. I mean, literally just yesterday I got clean water again that we can actually drink and wash dishes with and that sort of thing. And I was so grateful. And every day it's like basking in that spiked gratitude, taking that gratitude to a fever pitch. So that's what a tragedy like a hurricane can do. It can really help reveal to you what God is working on in you and how he's molding you into something more, his care, his love, and his sense of what you need to continue to be formed to be more like his son, Jesus, which ultimately is what this is all about. So, what is your Asheville story? Maybe you're not from Asheville. Maybe you visited, whatever it may be. Let's talk about it because Asheville stories are going to be something that I think are going to lead to a revival. And that's what I'd love to see is a revival, these stories leading to a revival here in Asheville where we raise up so much stronger and so much more filled with love and the truth of Jesus, his teachings and the way he lived. Boy, we've got a great head start here. So now it's just a matter of people coming together in community. So Subscribe with the notification bell to receive regular updates. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button to see more like this. Comment down below. This can be with questions or answers to a question that you ask. And I'll see you next time on this amazing journey from isolation to community, where the next step beyond is freedom.